Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Jennifer Otter Bickerdike, and welcome to the second season of the ITMI podcast. Oh my goodness, the guests we have lined up for you are just absolutely amazing this season, and we'll be kicking things off with a really special episode. This week, we are so stoked. We have Paul William Sage Francis on the podcast. And in case you're not familiar with Sage, he's been in the hip-hop game for over 20 years and still remains one of the most prolific artists in the genre for both releases and touring, alongside running his awesome indie label, Strange Famous, which, if you don't know about it, you have to check out. It's great. For this episode, we met in the garden of a great club called Cookie in Leicester, ahead of his epic Beardman show with Dolan. So really sorry if there's any background noise that crept into the recording. We had like some church bells going off and some shuffling, so I'm sorry if you hear that. It's also a slightly shorter episode because Sage didn't have too long before his shows, but we really managed to cover a lot in a short amount of time. In this episode, we speak about his early influences, where hip-hop is in 2019, how to deal with the insane touring schedule he has, and I have to say, he's such an absolute darling. He's so friendly, he's so smart, and it was just an absolute pleasure to have him on the podcast. So hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks a lot. Do your parents understand what you do? Because my family still does not understand like what I do, and I don't have half as crazy of a job as you.
They know I'm busy all the time. They've been to shows. They don't know the behind the scenes, all the work that basically a lot of the stuff I do is in my head, so it's not like they can witness
that process.
Labor. But I've been weird my whole life, and my mom has been okay with fostering the creative side of me. And when I was dressing really weird as a kid, or
so what is weird? Like, I'm sure you've talked about this before. I've read you talk
hammer
about this.
pants.
But what age? Because I hear at 8 supposedly you discovered hip hop. I mean, you were in Rhode Island. Isn't that like Metal Central?
It was, yeah. Everything was metal, and I hated metal. And that made me a pariah through almost all of my school years, right up until around 11th or 12th grade when hip hop started to get more popular. And the Chronic came out when I was a senior in high school, and then finally the metalhead kids were like, "Yeah, man, the Chronic," you know.
How did you? But you say you don't have older siblings. How did you first hear the hip hop? How did you first hear the hip hop?
I mean, I've answered this question before, and I hope it's correct because I feel like I'm telling myself something that maybe is not true. But there was a PSA on TV, and it was a rap song, and this girl was rapping about how you shouldn't smoke. But it was like, I knew I wasn't really familiar with what she was doing, but I liked rhymes. And I was at my aunt's house, and I pointed at the TV. I was like, I like this kind of music. I was like, what is this? And she had no idea. She was like, are you serious? You like this? So then I told my mom, and like, what is this? We tried to figure it out. And of course, like, Sugar Hill Gang was already out. They popular, like, it was a fad at the time. It was just like this big song. And I was like, oh, that's not going to last, you know. But thankfully, we had college radio, and I was able to catch Boston College Radio and Rhode Island College Radio.
You have a really good college radio station in Rhode Island, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly.
I worked on it for 3 or 4 years.
Oh,
I had
did
my
you?
own show. Yeah, that's how I started to promote myself and get my music out there. I basically went to URI just to take over the radio station. I would go on everyone's show. I would rap on everyone's show. There was like the very early stages of the internet. Most people weren't using it, so it wasn't like you could be heard outside of your general region without radio. So that was my move. And I didn't care about going to, I mean, I did go to class. I got great grades, but I didn't care about...
And 2 degrees.
Yeah, and I didn't want to I didn't want to get an internship. I didn't want to sit in a town hall and take notes. And no, I graduated college and I started serving ice cream at Ben & Jerry's, just trying to figure out a way to, channel my creative side and make it work somehow. But I never really thought it was going to work either. I kind of was dumb. I was a dumb person just to think that it would work out, even though it did. But there's so many things were weighing against it. I should have had more of a backup plan. And I always tell people, it's like, listen, don't count on music or don't count on art to provide for you. Do your art. It's wonderful. It's wonderful for you. But always like have some type of financial security that's not reliant on your art, because that is never promised and it can go away like that. Yeah.
Did having the degrees make you feel like, okay, I have that in the bag at least? If
I
all else
guess.
fails?
I mean, that was just almost icing on the cake for all the other things I did while I was at the university. Because I wasn't going to pursue it. I got a degree in journalism. If I was going to do journalism, I was going to do music journalism, and really, how much do they make? That's all I cared about. I didn't know enough about politics. I didn't know enough about adult life or anything. I knew about rap. I knew about ninjas. If I was going to do anything, it was going to be rap related or ninja related. So thankfully the rap thing, but also then the spoken word stuff came about.
Love to see you doing some ninja moves.
That was actually my job too. I was a private instructor.
Were you?
Yeah, I took several martial arts, starting in grade 4, and then I had to switch schools because they weren't teaching me how to fight, and I really wanted to grapple and spa. So we went to this like pretty underground dungeon of Cobra Kai fighters, and
So it was like Fight Club.
it was like Fight Club. Honestly,
Really?
people could come in off the street. They were invited to come in off the street and fight us if they wanted.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my teacher just was like, okay, here's an ex-Marine. He wants to blow off some steam. Are you ready?
Oh my
Like,
God.
Okay. I was 16. I was scared as shit. But it's like we had an understanding. It was you could get away with that during that time. It feels like nowadays there's zero chance
Oh,
of that
no.
happening. Because we were in a gym, raggedy gym. And I remember the floors, the carpet was all torn up. And it was like, man, everything was dirty and grungy. But it was the spirit of the place. It was cool. It was like, you can still smell the incense and like the fear.
Can I go back to something you said a second ago, and that was you were saying about really getting politically active. So for you, that wasn't at university. When did you start really getting entrenched and start following political stuff?
Well, for that sort of stuff, the stuff they don't teach in school was all coming through hip hop. So it was Chuck D, it was KRS-One. You know, those people who were saying the things that weren't comfortable conversations amongst white communities, and stuff that people of color were dealing with, that they were talking about in their music, and that's how it made its way to me. That made me want to research it more, follow up on the leads that they gave me, and learn about certain historical figures. You know, they weren't teaching about Malcolm X in high school at all. So, you know, Marcus Garvey or, you know, Angela Davis. So I would research all these people, and you know, that's what I cared about. And I feel like if it was...
Why did you care about that?
I don't know.
Like, why did that connect with you?
Maybe part of it was because it wasn't my life, and I hated my life. So I wanted to focus on something that wasn't me, or like would take me out of my town, out of my situation. And I identified, and I'm not saying I know what it's like to be a person of color in America, but the
Outsider,
angst,
yeah.
like the frustration and the anger. Like, I was an angry kid. I was frustrated, and I saw them communicate it. So I was drawn to it. Like, yeah, like I get it. Like, I'm not, I don't live your life. I don't understand exactly what it all is, but I do understand anger. I do understand, if there's a lack of justice, how you feel so helpless. What else are you going to do? Artists tell the story. And I loved that. That made me want to write, and that's what I started doing.
Just to go back to that part about race, though, did you have black friends growing up, or friends of color?
We didn't have a lot of black people in the part of Rhode Island where I lived. There were some, but for the most part, it was pretty lily white, Irish Catholic town. Trying to think. I mean, one of my best friends we played football together. They were half black. And at the time, they were mixed, and that wasn't as common as it is now.
Yeah.
And we didn't know, and I think back on it now, because I think of all the things that we talked about and how we weren't really sensitive to the fact that they had to sometimes choose one or the other side, and what that all meant. And but kids are still dumb, I'm sure. I'm sure there's always going to be kids who just are not sensitive to other people's situation.
I was just asking that because I remember, like I said, when I went away to university, and then I didn't have my first really close black friend until I was probably 20 or 21 when I started really working in the music business. And oh my God, Frank, the questions I would ask her, like, I mean, this is like early 90s. So I'm like, why do black people do their hair like, like the super ironed flat? Like,
it's fucking cool.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't like, ooh, like white person asking, but I didn't know. And like, I feel like now there's less room for those kind of conversations of not, like, if you genuinely don't know, I feel like there's not as much room for talking about stuff.
Because now you can Google it and be like, how come black people wear their hair in the Gumby shape? Because it's called a Gumby, motherfucker.
Is
That's
it?
why, yeah. I actually remember when I was, I can't remember, I had to be like 6 or 7, but I asked my parents how come I was like, where are the black people? I was like, how come you guys don't have black friends? And my dad did. He was like, I have black friends. You want me to bring them over? I was like, yeah. I remember Danny Chapman was his name, and we're driving in the car, and the first question I was like, asked him, I said, how come your lips are so big?
Really?
That was my question. And he just looked back, cool as shit. He goes, so I can kiss all the girls. That was it. I was like, that's a good answer. But that's good. That's why it's good to like have mixed communities and be able to kind of because people who grew up in rural communities or places that they never have contact outside of their homogenous group, I think their questions fester.
Yeah.
And their lack of answers or understanding turns into like almost a disdain. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like fuck that shit.
I guess that's what I'm driving at here. It's like I still feel like so just indebted to Kelly Pascal today for letting me ask those questions. And I still to this day, like I know all the time, like I can't walk in those shoes, but I'm when you're talking about the listening to Public Enemy, like that for me was an educational experience in a way. And when I met Angela Davis, I literally got down my hands and knees and kissed her shoes. But you have to. It's Angela Davis.
Yeah, and she's still going strong.
She is. Looks good. She looks really good. Mm-hmm. So talking about going strong, you are constantly touring. How important is that for maintaining your fan base and making new fans?
It's huge. Touring, unfortunately, is the most important thing you have to do in order to A, make money, B, get more fans, C, get promotion, D, all of the above. No. You're chained to that task if you want to have a comfortable checking account and continue to see profits from your art. I tried to quit. I made a concerted effort to stop touring. 2010 was I had an album called Life, and I toured. I mean, I've been touring since 99, and then world tours, and then and they're not, it's not like we have handlers. It's not like I'm an independent artist. For the most part, I'm doing most of the stuff myself, almost everything. And so it occupies all of your time. And I saw the difference between when I toured and didn't tour, and how that affected numbers and interaction and engagements. And I had to accept, I was like, if I'm going to be able to kind of, live comfortably and get everything done that I need to get done, I'm going to have to keep doing this. And I'd rather stay home. And so in 2010, my father passed away while I was touring. I was on the west coast of Canada, and I had to the next day we drove to Seattle, played the show in Seattle, and then I flew home that night to make the funeral. So we had to cancel one show. Then I went back the day after the funeral to catch the next show and just keep the train going, because so many people were reliant on me. Yeah. It was a big crew. It was, I couldn't cancel the tour.
You were at the top of this whole
we were going and going, and anyway, that was one thing. And B's the other guy in Epic Beardman, he was touring with me at the time too. He was opening up. His father was dying of cancer during that tour. So the whole time we were expecting him to pass away. Then my dad suddenly was the one who passed away. But then a good friend of mine and an incredible talent named Idea passed away while I was in New Zealand.
Oh, you're so far away.
And yeah, that's what I felt. I said, I'm so far away. I'm sick of being so far away from everything I care about. I'm done. I'm done touring. This is it. So after the 2010 tour, I declared that. Because I didn't want people to keep asking me, when you coming here? When you coming? I was like, I'm not going anywhere. No, I'll do a little, some shows, a few, maybe 2 in a row, and then come back home, which is what I did for about 4 years. but most of the time I spent it in my house by myself at the end of my dead end road. Sat there like, what do I do now? I don't have, I had a girlfriend at the time, but she was busy doing her own thing. She didn't live with me. I had my cats. After 4 years of living like that, I wrote Copper Gone, which dealt with a lot of solitude, depression, growing older in hip hop, what that means. Like, it's not really, it's a young person's genre for the most part. And as much as I've been involved and as long as I've done it, I've met a lot of people in the industry. And I've also seen a lot of careers just nosedive. And I'm like, I do like the old album a lot, but this new one, I can tell you're mailing it in. And then I see stuff that they say, certain things come out about people. You mean, you live long enough as a hero, you become the villain, whatever that saying is, it's true. The only person I think I would still be an intern for is Chuck D. Still, I told him that too. Like, we did shows together and we had a powwow, and I'm just like, man, he's the only one who I feel like has his head on so straight, and he's just stayed that path his whole career. I really cherish it, like just having him around and in the world. Not like we're homies, we hang out, but that he's still, raising awareness and staying active he's almost 60 now.
I mean, that's one thing that I talk about a lot with friends is, and I don't know if I'm getting older, but I just find hip hop now, there's hip hop versus rap and like the hip hop lifestyle, what hip hop means. And I don't see that much of that in commercial music anymore in the same sort of way it was, like Chuck D. And that makes me really sad. But then I'm like, maybe it's that I'm old.
Yeah, also I think those old paradigms don't apply anymore for a lot of reasons, because music is so fluid at this point. It's not like people who are trying to, I have to be careful about what I say. It's not my culture. I am, participating in it, but, the whole 4 elements thing, I think is a crock of shit. I mean, it's silly. It's like, there's 4 elements. It's this. I get it. Like, at least it gave people an understanding of, all these things were happening around the same time. They were interconnected. But you saw, like, through time, I saw the graph heads splinter off into their own thing. The B-boys, the DJs totally, like, everything splintered off, and then other things came in, and they're like, wait, is that an element? Wait, is this an element? I don't like making it academic. Like, if you gave someone a quiz, like, what is hip-hop? There's no real answer to it.
What do you think hip-hop is then in 2019?
It's amorphous. It's not a thing. It becomes more and more difficult to define just because we've allowed it to have a billion subgenres and just keep calling it hip-hop. Whereas rock or blues could turn into country western music. They didn't keep calling it blues. It was a new thing. Different people got involved, changed the sound. It became a new genre. Hip-hop, same thing. New people get involved, change the sound, change the style, but it's still called hip-hop. Like, okay, it's trap or, it's indie, but for the most part, the genre is hip-hop, and it's not like I don't know if we can get everyone together and all agree, like, okay, we're gonna have to segment it in this way. So maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I have no idea, but that's what it is.
Have you ever been tempted to change your image or your aesthetic?
To
be more commercial, especially when you were kind of going through this whole like.
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, I would go out of my way to shoot myself in the foot if I felt like things were getting a little out of my control. Because commercial to me is, I don't have control of that. Some other force takes over, and then I don't get to do everything that I want to do the way I like to do it. So I would consistently...
Are you a control freak then?
A bit. I would say so, yes. Because everything that I did worked, and everything everyone else tried to do for me didn't. Not everything, but a lot of things fucked up. I'm like, see, that's why I got to do this. Except for this, that Big Beard Man. This was a good collaboration, but it's, I waited 10 years. We both did before we were like, let's do this together. Let's do this. Yeah, let's do a real collaborative thing where neither of us can helicopter parent every aspect of it. I take over certain roles, you take over certain roles.
Can you tell us about the challenges and rewards then of doing your own indie label?
The rewards are you call the shots. You always decide what's what. No one can say this is bad for the bottom line or whatever. So that's wonderful. Never having to answer to anyone means a lot. The downside is it's constant work. There's no days off. You are always on call. You're always trying to catch up to what the new thing is. Because, before you know it, everything's streaming. And if you weren't paying attention to the streaming aspects of music or even movies and you're involved in those industries, you're dead. You're dead in the water. Now promoters and other people are deciding who they're going to book or work with depending on how many followers or streams an artist gets. And some people can get away with just being an incredible talent and not putting in the extra work to make sure they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed. But for as long as I've been involved in this, I know we have to do that and make sure we don't get left behind. Like when everyone migrated from MySpace to Facebook, and I was like, no way. I was like, I spent too much time on MySpace. I built that audience, and then all of a sudden, no one was coming to shows because they're all like they weren't seeing my promotion. So my direct connection to the fans is through social media, which is more and more is getting pulled away from us. So we have to
by that?
Because Facebook throttles posts now, and you have to pay.
Really?
Yeah. So your content is not reaching your audience. You have to pay or figure out a workaround around their algorithms. And if we didn't know that, we would be suffering for it. We do know that. We try to always figure out how to beat that system without paying into it because fuck that.
Yeah.
So
I'm stressed just listening to you about, I'm always like, I'd love to have my own indie label, but...
No, it's the worst idea.
Sounds, yeah.
It's the worst idea.
Are you going to continue on with it, do you think?
Yeah, but it's definitely slowed down. I'm not constantly in search of new artists.
What top 3 tips that you would say, do these 3 things so that you can have a career like yours? Wear sunscreen.
Forget your social life.
Yeah.
It's not about partying. Be very careful who you work with. The company you keep reflects on you and can affect your future prospects. So be with people who you mesh well with and have an understanding of. And don't be quick to sign contracts that you don't understand. If there's a deal big enough, and record deals may not even be a thing after a while. So if someone's pitching something to you that sounds too good to be true, and it means money, and it means they're going to make money off of you, get a lawyer involved. Be very on top of that. You may feel flattered that anyone's asking you to sign a contract, because I remember the first time I signed a contract, I was like, whoa, I've made it. I'm signing a contract.
Yeah.
Even though in the back of my head, I was like, all these rappers already told you, be careful of that shit. But I just was so excited to be in the moment and like, whoa, I'm signing a contract. And I still fucked up. I still thought I was smart. Years later, I signed another contract that my lawyer worked it out. But still now I look back in retrospect, I was like, I could have done better than that. But yeah, be very careful and learn as much as you can about the craft you're a part of. Do your best to have fun, but don't let that fun overtake. If you're trying to have a career, I'm saying. Like, if you just want to rap, if you just want to paint, if you just want to dance, do those things and have fun with it. But if you're really serious about it being your career, it doesn't matter what anyone says. You put your head down, you plow forward, find your audience, continue to work on your craft, and if you're good enough, they'll come. If you're not good enough, find a job and just do the music because you like it. And maybe you are good enough, but it's too soon for you.
That's good advice. Where on the lovely social media can people find you?
Well, Sage Francis on Twitter, on Facebook, Sage Francis SFR on Instagram, strangefamous.com, strangefamousrecords.com. That's the website.
What one do you like? What platform do you like the
I love
best?
Twitter is fun.
Do
Twitter's
you?
easy.
I don't
Twitter's
understand
easy.
it.
Yeah, I think in headlines, so it's, I just like having little quips. I'm able to contain a full thought and just whatever, how many little character limit there is. What is it, 100 30 now or something like that. But yeah, I don't get Instagram. I don't care
Really?
about pictures. Yeah, I'm not a visual person.
Really? You're a
Yeah.
word man, aren't you?
Yeah, but the most engagement you get is on Instagram. So I'm like,
Another one I
But
have to
still
deal with.
I mean, I still have fun with it. I like to use each platform in a specific way because there's strengths to Instagram that you can do stuff on Instagram that you can't do on Twitter or Facebook. So like that's cool. Like you get to play in each playground in its own special way. But Twitter is easy and fun for me, and I get more engaged, like talking to people and having little back and forths. That's fun.
Thank you so much for making this time, and
Yeah.
it's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
You're wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Cheers.
you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the ITMI podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, give us 5 stars, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. We're available on all platforms, including SoundCloud and YouTube. If you have any suggestions, questions, or people you'd like to hear us interview for the podcast, then please drop us a line through our email address that's in the description. Thanks, and catch you next time.